For most of my life, I felt like I've been at war with the world. And for the last 7 years, I've been on a deep spiritual journey. And I've come to realize that I was actually at war with myself. And it's a familiar human story where when we can't face the war inside of ourselves, we create a war or wage a war outside of ourselves. And that's what I see so much of in 2025, because there's something happening, right, that's really alarming to me at the moment in the world. And at least in my lifetime, I'm not saying it hasn't happened before, but I've just never seen this level of division and anger and hatred and intolerance and just a lack of care and love in the world. And it's easy to think that it's political because so much of it is in the name of politics and so much of the world revolves around politics, but it's actually psychological. And that's because inside of each of us, there's some really dark, hurtful energy, right? So if you were to think of the times you're greedy or selfish, or you're self-interested, or you're envious, or you're prideful, or you're all these other things, they're the dark parts of ourselves. That's what you would call the shadow. And they're the parts of ourselves that we really don't want to face, right? Because it requires you to look in the mirror. And if you look in the mirror, you might find some faults. And that sucks. Like looking in the mirror and having to come to terms with who you are is a really difficult thing to do. And so we've got this, our ego plays this wonderful little trick for us. It helps us out through a thing called projection. So it picks up all those dark, unclaimed parts of ourselves and it casts it on to somebody else. So it could be another group, it could be another religion, and it could be a political leaning or persuasion. It could be a race, who knows? But what it does is it gets to almost absolve you of it so that you don't have to face yourself, but that you can find fault in all these other people. And that feels really good sometimes. As weird as it is, it's great to have an enemy. It's not really great, but feels great sometimes. It can feel rewarding to just continue to throw rocks and throw stones at somebody else so that you don't have to face yourself. And I see this now where there's just political groups who pick up the name of Jesus and everything is done in Jesus' name. And yet there's a complete level of intolerance that I don't think Jesus ever stood for or would want to have anything to do with it. But it's that using on and weaponizing of Jesus' name and his teachings and everything so that people can gain political power. It's very simple that's what's happened. And, you know, Nietzsche said it in the 1800s, right? That God is dead. And so in the absence of God, what do? Well, it seems like we've actually pushed politics into its place. And politics has become the new religion. And the rallies that I see, they've become that new form of worship.
We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. Those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing.
I find it overwhelming at times because there's just so much hatred and such a lack of love. And when we do the projection and the shadow piece, one way that plays out is that we look for a scapegoat. So we need somebody that we can blame and lay it on. And if you actually look at the history of scapegoating, it's in the Bible. It's in Leviticus 16:8. If you take a look, I think it's under a heading called the Day of Atonement, where it talks about 2 goats. And these 2 goats, one is sacrificed to God and the other is taken, and all the sins of the village are kind of laid on or imprinted onto this goat who's sent out into the wilderness, out into the world to carry away the sins of the village. Now, it sounds like it might work, but it's dangerous because it's scapegoating and you're not really confronting any of the aspects of yourself. And you have to ask yourself then, how many scapegoats do we have, or do you see in 2025? Because I see a huge amount of them. And it's very easy to just pick one political leaning or one side and just scapegoat them for everything wrong that happens in the world so that you never have to face your own choices or yourself. Now, I've quoted the Bible a bit, I've mentioned Jesus a bit, so I just want to confirm my stance on all of this. I don't go to church. I don't follow an organized religion. I don't have a label to put on myself. I'm not a Catholic, a Protestant, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist. I'm not anything like that. I do follow religion in the strictest sense of what the word actually means. So if you look this up, the root meaning of religion is a word called religare. So that's where religion comes from. And that Latin verb, religare, means to rebind or to reconnect. And so that's the only religion that I'm actually interested in, which is one that is going to help us on the individual level rebind or come together, or that's going to help us collectively rebind and come together. Because the division in the world is not going to work. It's only going to sow more hatred and more enmity towards the people around us, because we're actually born whole. So as children, we are born whole, and progressively, as we learn the limitations of the world around us, or our parents, or our teachers, or ourselves, we start to splinter off. And those parts start to become spread out and disparate. And that's where we get that sense of not being full or whole or not being enough. That's where that comes from. And I don't know what the meaning of life is, okay? But I do know that one of the most meaningful things you can do in life is to try and get back to wholeness. Look for that religare, that rebinding, that reconnecting. And you have to start with yourself. Because if you've got division within yourself, you're going to find division within the world. And you'll find that in the Proverbs as well. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. If your heart is splintered internally, you'll find the world is splintered. And there's something really great from 1 Corinthians 12:25, which I want to talk through, which really exemplifies this in a great way, better than I ever could. As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. God has so composed the body that there may be no division. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honoured, all rejoice together. When I'm exploring these great works, and I've been really studying 3 of the great works at the moment, that's the Dhammapada, which is Buddhist, the Upanishads, which is Hinduism, and then the Bible, which is Christianity. And I tried to study these by using a pretty simple framework. It's a 3-step framework where I talk about literal, moral, and spiritual meaning. And I want to honor the literal meaning of the word. I don't want to twist it and warp it and mold it all around. But the one thing I will say from these is, like, any of these great books that have been going for 2, 3, 4,000 years, they're so much more than the literal meaning. And I see that with most of them some are literal, but a lot of them are just allegorical. They're metaphorical. They're parables or stories or something that need to last in time. And if it was just the literal meaning of the word, I don't think it would have had the resonance that it does. But because it's on that spiritual, deeper level, that's why it resonates with us still. That's why the Bible, 2,000 years old at this stage, we still read it. We still find so much in it because it connects with the deepest parts of us. So if I took the 1 Corinthians passage, I would say, yes, from a literal perspective, we would hope the body is not in division. You use your teeth to chew. You hope your esophagus works so you can swallow. You hope your stomach breaks down the food. You hope your kidneys takes out the waste, etc. So yes, literally, if you have division in the body, that's going to cause lots of problems. When you don't, that's when you feel physically great in yourself. Now, morally, when they talk about the body, that's the body of humanity. And so if the body of humanity is in division, then the world becomes separated and people become separated. And you just get this massive division between people, which is exactly what we see now in the world. But where I really dig into this one is on the spiritual side. So when it talks about division or the body being division, in a sense of division or divided, that's because that's us. The body represents us and our soul and our heart. And that becomes split off and all these parts of ourselves become divided. And when that happens, that's where we start to find that projection solution, and we start to project those problems and everything onto everybody else. And it's also why we go off in search of trying to find something that can bring us back together. So you probably know that feeling of not being enough, or feeling like you're missing purpose, or you're missing meaning, or you're not connected to something bigger, or your heart just isn't flowing with the energy that you want. You know that sense of dissatisfaction that's sometimes hard to describe or pin down. And that's the problematic piece for us. That's where addictions come from. That's where destructive behaviors arise from, because we go in search of something that's outside of ourselves. And when we've exhausted that, then we start to come back to ourselves and we realize that actually the solution sits within. But it takes a lot of work to do that. Right? So that's how I look at this, and that's how I break these things down when I look at texts or scriptures. And I'm going to go through lots of different scriptures on the channel, because what I'm working towards here is trying to get people back to wholeness, trying to make sure I experience that, which I'm experiencing a great sense of it at the moment. But I can only get there by opening my mind and opening my heart. So that's the two big things: an open mind and heart, and wholeness. So you're open, but you're together, and then they work in tandem. That's the way it works. And to take these actions in the world, right, it's only going to start on the micro level. So I can't change political systems. I can't change political parties. I can't stop wars in countries, right? That's macro level stuff, but it's micro level actions. And if enough people can take the micro, it starts to turn into the macro. And that's how we make the change. But change is only going to start with you and with me on the individual level. And I want to quote Carl Jung, because he said something very similar to that. Jung said, "The change must begin with one individual. It might be any one of us." And so I want to start with a small, deliberate act. That's going to be my ask of you and of myself from this video. And I want to caveat that by saying, this is not me sitting here preaching to you from up high, where I live the perfect life, where I get everything right, where I don't make any errors, where I don't make any mistakes. And if only you could follow me, then wouldn't you be so much better? Right? It's nothing like that. I fall short of the mark that I set for myself all the time. And I have to restart, I have to reset, and I have to come again. And there are times when I want to be nicer, when I want to be more caring, when I want to be more open-minded, when I want to be more empathetic, I want to be more understanding. And I don't. I fall short. And then I have to sit there with those feelings of wanting to be better, but failing effectively, missing the mark of who I want to be as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a colleague, as a citizen of the world. I fall short of that. So please don't take this as a message where I'm telling you what to do because I think I'm so much better. It's nothing like that. I've struggled for years. I finally got to a good place where I can open up my heart, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I want to encourage you to do as well, if you can. So my ask is, can you go out into the world and just do something nice for somebody? A small, deliberate, nice, loving, caring act for somebody else. That's the only ask I have. And it doesn't have to cost you any money if that's the case. You could just give someone a compliment. You could smile at someone. You could give them a hug. You could tell them you love them. You could write them a nice note. You could send them an email, send them a WhatsApp message, give them a call. You could just listen to somebody. You could go for a walk. You could buy them a coffee. But you'll find that most of the things that give us the greatest sense of satisfaction are actually free. It could just be spending time with someone. As I said, just listening, being there, being a shoulder for someone, putting an arm around somebody else, giving up your time. All these things make a difference, and you might not see them immediately, but they'll make a difference in you and they'll make a difference in somebody else. And why I know this is the way we're built, it's because we have the goodness inside of us and we have a light inside of us. It's in there. And I know this sounds like BS, or people will say that this is fluff, but I don't mind, because deep inside myself, I do know that there's something in there. There's a light that's trying to shine. Even if you look at Matthew 5:15 in the gospel and what Jesus said, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. So from a scriptural perspective, if I take that literally, it's like, yes, if you have a room that's in darkness and you turn on the light, it would make sense not to cover it up because you want to illuminate the room. But what that's really saying on that deep spiritual level again is that you have a light inside of yourself. You should put it on the lampstand, metaphor, and let the light shine. Let the light shine out of you with love and care and empathy and understanding. That's what Jesus is talking about. That's his message. It's not about division. It's not about saying that you're right and only your way is right and that everyone on the left or everyone on the right is wrong. It's not about that. It's about recognizing what you have inside of yourself, doing the work to bring yourself back to wholeness, and that light will shine. And that's my ask. Please go out into the world and let the light shine. You'll have to find it. You'll have to find a stand to put it on. You'll have to find people who can help you and will encourage you and will guide you along the way. But ultimately, you're the only one that can get it. You're the only one that can find it and can experience it. But you have everything that you need inside of yourself to find that light. And I want to leave you with just one quote from one of my favorite authors. It's David Foster Wallace. And he said, "Being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad, petty, little, unsexy ways every day." And that's my ask, is just for you to carry out some unsexy sacrifice for somebody else, to do something just nice for somebody else, and to get off the internet, get off X and Twitter, stop reading the news for just a little bit of time. Give yourself some space to breathe from that overwhelming negativity that runs throughout the world, and try and find the light and the positivity that runs within you and within other people. And if we can do that, if we can raise the bar individually today, I think we can create a better tomorrow. And if this is idealistic, great. I don't mind. I'm going to put this out into the world, and I would love if you could come back and tell me on this video, post a comment. Did you do something nice for somebody? What was it? How was it received? How did you feel? I'll post up what I did for somebody else. And then hopefully we can get a little bit of momentum going here where we put some love out into the world for some other people. So thanks for staying till the end. If you did, I'll post more videos up soon, and take care.